Portrait tutorial, structure and skin tone. While looking for references to learn to copy, I add some of my own subjective ideas to generalize and summarize the rules of portrait structure and skin tone. I am going to share with you all that I know about this part in the video. Start by finding some portrait reference images, the kind where the face takes up a large percentage of the whole picture. We should have both diffused neutral light and direct light, preferably each one from a different angle. It is not recommended to look for faces with occlusions or other shadows. After all, the main purpose of this time is to study facial structure and skin tone. For the overall uniformity of the drawing demo, I scaled and cropped the image after importing it. An ellipse was used to represent the face, and some of the ellipses were angled to make it easier to draw later. Start by choosing a color that covers most of the face as the base color for the skin tone. It is not recommended to pick the color directly with the eyedrop tool, but to make your own color judgments and adjustments, which is also helpful to practice your own color skills. Don't worry about what to do if you don't choose the right color. If you don't choose the right color, just change it. That's what digital painting is for. I didn't choose the colors exactly according to the reference image. One is that it takes time to choose the corresponding colors exactly. The other is that the color tendency is something more subjective. We need to respect the objective facts and also add some of our own ideas on it. There are a few tricks to choosing colors, but skin tones are usually in the red to yellow range in the upper left corner of the color cube. After painting the base colors, I prioritize the dark areas. Although in the series, the darks and the lights should contain about the same amount of information, the darks are usually not as saturated and the colors are not as varied, making them easier to work with. Also, the darks give me a rough idea of what the final effect of the whole image will be, and the degree of completion is immediately improved by a large margin. The darker areas of the face are more fixed, basically the shadows created by the pumpy parts of the features. If there is direct light, there will be a projection. Since only one color is used to paint the dark areas, you don't have to think about it too much. Just pay attention to shape and position. The darker colors are chosen to be slightly darker and more saturated than the base color. After drawing the dark area to roughly confirm the location of the facial features, the next step is to use the brush and eraser to draw the outline of the face. The darker parts of the face can be used as an aid in positioning the drawing. The dark structure can also be fine-tuned as you work on the shape of the face. This is all a very quick process and does not need to be drawn with excessive detail. There are very few parts of the face that are represented by straight lines without additional stylization. What is usually drawn are curves with arcs. The front face is relatively easy to draw. Just add the ears on either side of the center of the face. The side faces should be drawn with attention to curve and bumps. The light part needs to be drawn much less than the dark part. If we are not familiar with the structure, we can follow the reference image to draw first and summarize the rules after drawing. The light parts are basically the raised, illuminated areas of the face. When you draw more, you will know that they basically have a fixed position: forehead, bridge of the nose, cheekbones, center of the eyes, lips, and so on. Highlights are usually the brightest point in the light part. Sometimes it's more noticeable, sometimes it's very noticeable. When certain makeup is used, it adds contrast to the face and makes the highlights more visible. It feels incomplete with only 3 colors, but the main purpose of the first step is to differentiate between light and dark areas to derive a pattern from the facial structure. So let's test the position of the 5 senses and the perspective by first using crossed lines. If there are obvious deviations in this step, it is recommended to modify them. You can move, rotate or warp the target position of the corresponding layer by selecting it with the lasso tool, or you can adjust it with the liquify tool. Then we roughly draw the facial structure based on the drawing we made and the default facial structure lines. Since not everyone has so many facial structure lines on their face, we only draw the parts we can see. It doesn't matter if you are not sure about the facial structure, just get the general shape right. Since the top of the head and the ears are often covered by hair, sometimes it is not easy to locate. We can guess the approximate position based on other reference. You can see that the light and shadow structure of the face is somewhat related to the structural lines. However, if all our portraits are drawn according to the standard face structure, the diversity of creation will be limited at the beginning. So I personally tend to learn from real-life examples first, simplify and then summarize. Since I'm personally not very good at drawing lines, my structure lines are usually as minimal as possible and roughly good enough to be used to test the structure. It's the kind that's more complex than a crosshair positioning line, simpler than a facial structure frame, and incorporates scapular and muscular alignment. Okay, next we draw the skin shader. The criterion for a good drawing is the right color in the right shape in the right position. In the first step, we dealt with shape and position, and in the second step, we started to focus on color. Eyeshadow, lip color, and even blush are extra colors that are not part of the skin tone, so you need to ignore these parts when planting the skin tone ball. When we draw skin color balls based on reference images, we must be careful not to copy the original. Rather, it is important to have your own understanding and imagination of color. Usually, the boundary between light and dark is the most saturated, with a warm tone and a cool tone for the light and dark areas. If the light source is warm, use cool shadows. If the light source is cool, use warm shadows. These are used to add color variety to the overall painting. This part of color theory I have to explain in another video, how to do add or change color study in detail. Here we are not going to more, directly to the conclusion. Common colors, cayenne, yellow, magenta is usually used for the light part. Red, yellow, and blue is usually used for the dark part, and the others are usually used as the middle tone. Skin tones themselves have a limited color hue, so when adding warm and cool, you can make a few light strokes with the color of the corresponding hue, and then draw on the blended color. Therefore, even if we use the same reference image, the skin color ball we draw may be different. Please follow your own feeling. There is no single answer for drawing itself. We now have both skin color spheres and face structures. It's the same as having separate colors and separate positions and shapes. So the next step is to combine them. You don't have to think too hard. Just pick up the color on the skin tone ball and paint directly onto the facial structure. I use a brush with pressure control. So a lighter brush makes it lighter and a heavier brush makes it heavier. The type of brush you use depends on your personal preference, but once you get used to it, it's really the same as any other brush. Since I want to make this video without the brushes affecting the painting, I only use the most basic brushes. At this point, all of the skin color and texture is pretty much taken care of. The darks to be added later are related to individual facial structures. I won't cover them all here. I will make separate videos later to explain each one. I considered drawing all 9 but felt the video would be too long. I just picked the 3 with different angles and skin tones and draw them all from experience without any additional reference. I know they may not be perfect, but as an exercise, this level is almost enough. It takes quantity to change quality, and painting usually takes a certain amount of practice. After you have practiced painting skin color and texture, you can find another reference for painting the entire portrait. You can also refer to the skin tone sapphire for the hair and draw a material sapphire before taking the color for refinement. I admire those who spend a lot of time on a single drawing, but for me, the efficiency of practice per unit of time is my main concern. So I don't get obsessed with details or overly concerned with perfection. At first, I also draw cooked. None of the proportional position of the 5 cents is right. But if you think about the other way around, as long as we get the proportional position and perspective right, we have most of the structure right. Plus the understanding of skin color, we have taken a big step forward in portrait painting. So don't be afraid or discouraged. We will get better at painting. Thank you for watching this video and see you next time.